Today's NDE afterlife experience is from Nancy. Nancy talks about her near-death experience, NDE, when she crossed over to the other side. She also talks about getting a glimpse of the future during this spiritual visitation to heaven. Nancy's story suggests that there is life after death and that heaven awaits when we cross over to the other side. Welcome to Near-Death Tales. If this is your first time checking this channel out, I'm glad to have you here. My name is Joseph, and I will be narrating the near-death experiences of those who have died and have seen the other side. Today's experience comes from Nancy. Here it is. Hi, my name is Nancy. In December of 2010, I suffered from complex autoimmunity gone awry when doctors unknowingly gave me a medication that impacted my liver. At that time, we already knew my lungs were compromised, affecting the whole system. According to my medical records, I fell and suffered a traumatic brain injury. The combination of systemic organ failure and the hit to the head led to an automatic coma. I was helicoptered to Johns Hopkins Hospital, where I went into my near-death experience. For me, my consciousness began leaving the body in the ICU, and this is where I began to observe what initially felt like a lucid dream. At this point, according to my understanding and intuition, I wasn't fully separated from the human body, and so there was some identification and knowing of the human, a desire to take care of the body and return to the soma. Yet at the same time, there was this magnetic, gravitational-like pull to the other side, and that is ultimately what anchored me. I pivoted from this very human scene very, very rapidly through what appeared to me like the atmosphere into the sky, the stars, or the cosmos. And that is how the other side appeared to me. It was light, it was vibration, it was a felt sense, it was the most abundant, beautiful love I had ever experienced. When I initially got there, I was pulled into these three lights, a trifecta of beauty. To me, they were a ruby tone, an amethyst gem tone, and what I would describe as an emerald as well. These lights were so familiar to me. It was as if I were participating in a cosmic familial reunion. The light knew me, and I knew it. For the first time, I really felt seen and validated. To me, on the other side, there were aspects of my consciousness that are still with me and embodied. They were the same there as they are here. That might be because I was in a comatose state and not entirely dead. I don't know. What I do know is that it was very much me, yet not an embodied version of me. I felt so enchanted by those lights that I initially did not notice the magnitude of abundance and the vibrations that were dancing all around me. At this point, I started to realize that I am without form, that I am formless, and that I may become one with the lights. Some lights came into me and shared their warmth and understanding. Now you have to imagine, nothing is being said with words. Everything is communicated through vibration, the highest vibration. There is no time. So for me, it was this beautiful ebb and flow of energies. Yet, looking back, I quantify it by time because it was 3.5 days, and it felt like eternity. When I speak of it even now, it feels as if the period of time, for lack of better terms, was longer than when I was actually embodied. Prior to the coma, I had been in my human form for 29 years in this incarnation. Now, over there, I'm there 3 days asleep, technically. I'm held by these angelics. That's how I perceived them, at least in the beginning, and I'm just so elated to be with them. And so they held me. And as they were doing that, messages were coming in. All sorts of messages about the body, about what happened. And now that I understand from my own experiences how the ethics chakras work, this makes more sense. At the time, it was all experienced as my consciousness receiving all of this. It was instantaneous as well. I mean, things literally moved at the speed of light. You'd think something or feel something and boom, it was there. They answered it. You were received. You were loved. You were acknowledged. For me, at some point in this light language we were communicating through vibration and frequency, I expressed my care and my concern for the human and the body and the family and all of these things. It was made known to me that I had a choice from the moment I arrived there to stay or to go. I was being welcomed in any way, any shape, any form, for as long as I wished to be there. There was no right. There was no wrong. Everything was okay. And so, as they supported me, as we were just kind of moving effortlessly through the space, almost like we were each stars or universes of our own, because the colors were continually shifting, these colors supported me as we moved and shifted and came into the epicenter of space. When you got there, it was almost as if you were brought to your formless knees in awe of this energy, of this being, of this illumination. In that space, I know it now as the Creator. It never introduced itself as anything. It was always love, abundant love. So, I'm in this space, and I'm finally awed by this beautiful ultraviolet white light. It's humongous compared to the stars and the angelics and the other celestial beings that were present to me. Nothing had form in this space. Everything was light and vibration and sound. This beautiful, ginormous orb of Creator light is calling, and I feel so connected. There was that instantaneous circling back to what I was just saying. This instantaneous awareness that it was not separate from me. Looking and feeling around me, I began to understand intuitively that we were all part of this divine light, and that the angelics and the celestials and the stars, all the different forms of light, and light consciousness, as I like to determine, that was communicating with me, was part of this Creator light. And so, in a sense, we are all fractals of this light, or fractals of God, or fractals of Source or Spirit, whatever vernacular you choose to quantify and qualify the ineffable. So, as I'm receiving this abundant love, some part of my consciousness wants to completely merge with said light, with the Creator, and yet some other part does not. That made me curious because, as much as I wanted to go forward and reunify with the Creator, I felt called back and a bit of obstruction. So, it was more than a curiosity, and I felt really pulled and curious as if I should stay or if I should go. In that moment, the angelics and the other celestial beings came in, and that's where they reiterated, there's no right or wrong. You may stay, you may go, you may stay in the in-between for a while. All are welcome here. It's okay. And so with that, I was able to just be in the space and realize that I didn't have to do anything. I played with that for a while, possibly to decide what I wanted to do, to see if I wanted to stay. It's just what I did. It could have been a byproduct, too, of being in the in-between. And then, as I'm doing that, I start to really feel that pull get stronger to the body, and the angelics start giving more messages. I start asking more questions to the point of, if I go back, what will it be like? There's no sugarcoating. In my experience, the angelics were very firm. They let me know that if I went back, I was going to go through more suffering. I was going to go through more trauma. I was going to go through physical ailments again. But what they were basically letting me know is that I was going to go back to fulfill a soul contract that I had come here for, and that there were still parts of it that were karmic, and that would not be fun for me. Now you can imagine, if my consciousness is still somewhat attached to the human because I am in between a comatose state, does a complex trauma survivor want to go back to a body that has already been through severe decades of trauma and now medical trauma, and then return to go through more? Of course, that little part that was still very much human did not want to do that, not at all. And yet the soul had been held and healed in so much light that it was really recalibrated and reoriented through the One, as I call the Creator, and through the Creator's light. I was able to then realize that my soul's evolution, the work that my soul knew it was equipped and had chosen to come here to do, was what I was truly aligned with. Yes, it was going to be difficult if I went back, but I would ultimately rise above it. How exciting for the soul to know that it's returning to be part of a collective experience of profound healing. So, that caused me to decide that I did want to return. Then I asked them quite clearly, how do I get back to the human? How do I get back to the body? Their answer was to look for lights unlike any others. My consciousness starts hyper-focusing on one light, assuming I'm going to see one big light like the Creator, and then boom, back in the body. Yet I end up seeing three lights. One is this horrific yellow, piercing, very earth-like artificial light. Then these other two are very soft. Also, jewel tones. This time we have a very bright green, and then we also have an indigo. Indigo was very, very strong. So of course the obnoxious loud light really got my attention at first. But the love pool, the vibration that I had been just immersed in the space, is coming from the jewel-toned lights as well. They have a very different energetic signature than the celestials and the angelics, than the stars, and then obviously from the Creator. But what's interesting, and I always, when I feel back into the state, is they didn't hold me the way that the other lights did. I felt an attraction to holding them. I wouldn't come to understand this attraction for approximately 3 more years. Yet, unbeknownst to me at that time, those were the auric signatures, the energy signatures of my children as they are now. That's significant to me because those 10 years of spirit referenced my eldest, who was born 3 years into my reintegration journey, and my youngest, who was born 7. So they covered that 10-year gap. I just had the 3 years alone. That totality ends up really being an anchor point to keeping me on the earth plane because so many persons that have these experiences go through many difficult periods thereafter, and I was textbook in that way. So, my sons appearing to me in the space and holding me then was very much a poetic metaphor for how their energy would serve me later on. I ended up returning and giving my children names, one that's associated with heaven and one that's associated with earth, because they very much have been my heaven on earth. They have brought me into balance here and really taught me how to bring the lessons of the cosmos into the body. So, their light anchors me into really wanting to go back, and I'm most grateful I did. I held on to them in that space for a little bit of time just to savor. From there, I pivot and ask Spirit how this isn't taking me back to the body, but I really love this energy. They're like, you'll know that energy again, you'll know it all again, you'll know this space again, you'll know us. None of this is leaving you. Should you choose to go, you just go back to embodied form. So I then did go towards this artificial light. The way it is over there, the minute you make a consciousness-based decision, you are catapulted into it. There's no in-between state. It's just instantaneous. Everything. I look at this bright, horrific light, and next thing I know, I'm back in the body, like catapulted into the body. A very uncomfortable, traumatized body. There is this horrific, bright yellow artificial flashlight, a ginormous one, and they were attempting to check my vital signs because, again, I had been declared brain dead, and I'd been comatose at that point for 3.5 days. So, they're just looking for movement or rapid eye movement, anything like that, and sure enough, I came into right then. It was very discombobulating to go from this beautiful, loving space and then suddenly have artificial light cast into your eyes. But that was my callback to the body, and that was the beginning, the very beginning of my journey with my NDE after effects. As I returned to my body, and in this new form of consciousness is put into the very same body that I left, suddenly I realized that the person I was before, the Brooke that had gone into a coma, the Brooke that had been ill with autoimmunity, was gone, and there was a new human, a new way of being and relating and communicating with this world. I had a miraculous spontaneous healing and remission and completely healed from autoimmune disease. I left the hospital in less than a month, and I had this miraculous, beautiful healing from the angelics. Yet when I came back out into the human world and I was learning to use my gifts without any support, I felt more connected and more in alignment and more in service to the light than ever before, because of that constant commitment, that constant call to come back to center and to come back to service and to use the darkness and the shadow and the pain to help others, to inspire others. So that's really the crux of my work here and now.